3 weeks ago, a swarm of polo-shirted enforcers showed up at my fence, yelling for me to open the gate for the HOA. I settled into a lawn chair, cracked a cold beer, and held up a scorecard. I gave them a 7.5 for terrible coordination. They assumed I was just some stubborn rancher. They had no idea I had 4K cameras, receipts, and a whistleblower ready to take down their whole HOA. I said 3 words: my land, my rules. But to understand how it got to that circus, you need to know 2 things: the land and my grandfather. People like to say Texas soil remembers everything: boots, storms, hooves, trouble. And if you stick around long enough, it remembers you too. I've lived on this 12-acre stretch just east of town most of my life. Not all at once. Life pulled me away a few times, as it does to everyone. But, like a man who's run every other road dry, I always ended up back here. The land was waiting. The house, a squat, stubborn structure older than most marriages in this county, leaned slightly west, like it had all the time in the world. And maybe it did. My grandfather Earl built the first version with his own hands. He believed a man wasn't worth much unless he left something that could stand a good wind. Out here, winds don't ask permission. They just come. He used to say, "Boy, you don't just own land. You care for it, and it'll care for you." I believed him then, and I believe him even more now, because this land, this fence line, this gravel road, this workshop that smells of diesel and cedar, it did take care of me. The driveway alone is a 1/4 mile long. Most of it is still the gravel my grandfather laid down in 1967 with a rented grader and a mule that hated mornings. It runs from the county road, curls around a stand of pecan trees, and ends at a heavy iron gate with my last name welded across the middle. The kind of gate that says, without raising its voice, "Turn around unless invited." Most folks respect that. Most of the older ones prefer it. Privacy is rare these days, same with quiet. But on my land, quiet didn't visit. It lived here. Mornings start slow. Coffee on the porch, dogs at my feet, sun rising soft and orange behind the cedars. Sometimes I'd sit long enough to watch the dust settle on the road, knowing nobody was coming up it unless they meant to. That kind of peace. You don't measure it in minutes, you measure it in breaths. My workshop sat to the side, long and low, added on bit by bit whenever my grandfather got bored or irritated. Inside were tools older than most men who owned them, a tractor that only ran because stubbornness is hereditary, and half-finished projects waiting for me to decide what mattered. Life wasn't fancy, didn't need to be. I had space, I had quiet. I had enough distance from the next living soul to drink coffee in my underwear without worrying about anyone calling the sheriff. That's a kind of freedom subdivisions don't sell. And for a long time, nobody bothered me. Mail came when it came. Dogs barked when they felt like it. Seasons rolled past in their own slow rhythm. The only rules that mattered were the ones written into the dirt. Then Clearwater Ridge showed up. It began with survey flags, little orange and pink markers sprouting across the road like weeds. Then came trucks, concrete, framing crews. Within a year, a full-blown HOA development appeared out of nowhere. They called it Clearwater Ridge, which was funny because there isn't a clear thing within 10 miles, just scrub, dust, and a creek that remembers it's a creek only when it rains too much. They built fast, too fast, all lined up behind a white stucco wall and a decorative sign with swoopy cursive letters. A gated utopia for people who want their world pre-approved and pre-packaged. Out here, we call that decoration for people who don't trust themselves. Running the little kingdom was President Karen Sterling. You've seen her type. A sharp haircut, pressed clothes, a voice that could turn the word community into a warning. At meetings, she probably called herself a steward of neighborhood order. To me, she looked like someone who believed rules were sacred, as long as she wrote every single one. At first, I ignored them. They stayed on their side of the road. I stayed on mine. They could fuss over lawn heights and fence colors all day. I didn't care. Their world was matching mailboxes and newsletter drama. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and help me reach 100K subscribers. Your support really means a lot and keeps me motivated to create more stories like this. My world was busted knuckles and a gate that only swung for the right people. But geography became a problem. The back half of their community ran into rough country, brush, rocks, uneven ground. No easy way in for trucks, emergency vehicles, or the toys a shiny new HOA likes to parade. The only logical access was my southern gate, opening onto my private gravel road, carved by my grandfather with sweat, diesel, and bad language. They saw convenience. I saw my family's backbone. They wanted it. I said no. Simple. But with people like that, no isn't an answer. It's a challenge. That's when trouble started. 3 days after Clearwater Ridge's ribbon cutting, I spotted movement at my southern gate. 2 men in reflective vests and 1 in a crisp navy polo were standing there, like they were waiting for someone to sign permission slips. Even from halfway down the drive, I knew who was in charge. Clipboard guy, shoulders back, chin high, smile half salesman, half threat. The type who never lifted anything heavier than his ego. I walked down slowly, wiping grease from my hands with the same rag I'd used that morning. The dogs followed like deputies. Clipboard guy stepped forward, smile bright enough to need a dimmer. "Good morning, sir. We're with Clearwater Ridge Community Logistics. We'd like temporary access through your gate for a few days. Construction trucks, deliveries, it'll save trouble." He said it like he was doing me a favor. I looked at the gate, then him. "This gate?" I asked. "Yes, sir," he said. One added, "Concrete trucks come Friday. Your road's the only direct access." I folded my rag neatly, not for cleanliness, but because silence shows people who they really are. "This road isn't public," I said. "It's on my deed, not your plans. You know that." Clipboard's smile twitched. "We can make it worth your while," he said, dropping the neighbor act. "The HOA will compensate generously." I shook my head. Slow, clear, final. "I've told your president I'm not interested. This isn't logistics. It's boundaries." Clipboard opened his mouth, probably to recite a memorized speech. I cut him off. Not angry, just finished. "My land, my rules." The air shifted. Not a gust, not a breeze, just that deep quiet when someone realizes the answer isn't changing. Friendly faces slipped off like poorly glued masks. Clipboard flipped a page. "You might regret that," he murmured. I smiled. "But mine wasn't friendly." "You boys are on private property without permission," I said. "Trespassing. Conversation's over." I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff's non-emergency line. Their posture changed instantly. Stiff, defensive, frustrated. They left before Deputy Miller arrived, tires chewing gravel loud enough to warn. Miller took my report with a sigh, the kind that belongs to a man who knows trouble doesn't knock once. "Overzealous suburban types," he muttered, eyes saying this wouldn't be the last drive up my road. Next morning, HOA pamphlets appeared in my gate hinges, mailbox, scattered across gravel like glossy toilet paper. Bold red headlines screamed, "Blocking community infrastructure, endangering safety. He's putting us at risk." They even made a website. I didn't get mad, shout, or throw anything. I added another lock, welded a second bracket, and mounted a new camera. If they wanted to fight, they were about to learn a lesson. The silence that settled after the gate confrontation wasn't peaceful. It watched, waiting to see my next move. I knew exactly what the HOA would do. People like that don't hear no. They translate it into try harder. I spent 2 days upgrading every camera, thermal sensors, night vision, motion triggers, cloud backups every half hour. Not paranoia, experience. Trouble rarely announces itself politely twice. And right on schedule, it arrived. At 2:31 a.m., my phone buzzed, a motion alert along the east fence. I rolled out of bed, slipped on boots, grabbed my jacket, and stepped outside. No panic, just steady steps toward the workshop while checking the feed. 2 figures in black moved along the fence, one with a low flashlight, the other with a big toolkit. They were here to break something. I hit the silent alarm. Floodlights hummed awake, half strength, enough to illuminate them without tipping them off. They reached the gate. Toolkit guy flipped on a grinder, sparks shot out like angry fireflies. Not getting through, the lock was triple reinforced. The second guy handed him a folded paper. Under the flashlight, I saw the header. Looked like a court order and a fake badge for a Riverbend enforcement officer. a position existing only in Karen Sterling's imagination. I didn't yell, didn't rush. Sometimes the smartest move is letting people record their own guilt in 1080p. From behind the tractor shed, I filmed everything: grinder, fake paperwork, cosplay badge, every stupid decision. Then headlights crested the ridge. Red and blue lights followed. Deputy Miller and another unit arrived, tires spitting dust. Sparks flew. Loudspeaker, "Hands up, step away." Grinder boy dropped the tool. His partner tried to run, fell face first into mud. By the time I stepped into the light, both were cuffed. Miller glanced at me. "Mr. Saltz, this happens often?" Before I could answer, Grinder boy panicked. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding. Karen said it was authorized. She'd handle the paperwork." His partner groaned. Miller tapped his mic. Confession coming through loud and clear. I shrugged. "Only when the HOA gets creative," I said. Miller's mouth twitched slightly. Understood. This wasn't a one-off. It was a war. Deputies secured the scene, bagged the fake order. Even 3 feet away, the font, stamp, and signature screamed fake. Miller nodded slowly, the kind of nod when a problem you hoped didn't exist is confirmed. He asked the intruders why the grinder, the forged papers, the 2 a.m. timing. At first, silence. Then Grinder boy cracked, "Karen said it was authorized, all handled." Miller didn't respond, just adjusted his vest, checked the body cam, and asked, "Who's Karen?" "Karen Sterling, HOA president," the man blurted. "She hired us for early road access, called it expedited compliance operations." Miller blinked once. "That's not a thing. HOAs don't have enforcement officers, don't issue court orders, and don't authorize 2:30 a.m. break-ins." Another deputy radioed in details. I stayed quiet, didn't need to. Everything fell into place. Deputies loaded the 2 into patrol cars. Miller motioned me over. "Footage?" he asked. "All angles?" "Night vision, audio, close-up of cosplay badges," I said. Miller exhaled. "Good. Sheriff's office needs copies, not just trespassing, fake documents, impersonation, attempted forced entry. If what they said about Karen is true, she might be in deeper." I nodded. Miller climbed into the cruiser, hand on the door. "Get that footage to the station in the morning. Lock the gate tight." "Already planned." Lights faded into dark. I stood by the gate, letting night settle, wind carrying burnt metal away. A man can feel when a line is crossed. Tonight, someone stomped on mine. By sunrise, I synced every second of footage, delivered it to the sheriff. By noon, the investigation was official. By 4 p.m., the HOA released a statement, PDFs on their site, emails even taped to their entry gate. Riverbend Homeowners Association distances itself from unlawful actions of an independent contractor. We are shocked and disappointed by this behavior. Plain language, we didn't think he'd get caught. That evening, pamphlets appeared again, this time about me. Accusations, speculation, warnings to residents, blurry photos, fake crime scene tape, poorly photoshopped. I almost laughed, almost. But inside, I went quiet, steady. The HOA had no idea what kind of man they were poking. You don't spend your life protecting what's yours to let polo shirt bureaucrats rewrite reality. They thought I'd back down, fold, fear would work where bribery didn't. All they did was show me how far they'd go. Next move was mine. It didn't take long for the HOA to escalate. Charm, threats, forged papers, midnight break-ins, it all led to public theater. 2 mornings after their PR stunt, I walked onto my porch with coffee and saw something I hadn't in 20 years. A dozen people clustered along my fence like confused flamingos. Far enough not to trespass, close enough to display every homemade sign. "Let us through. Emergency access saves lives. Share the road, Saltz." One woman even had a neon glitter poster saying, "Don't be selfish. Think of the community." I didn't respond. I grabbed a lawn chair, beef jerky, a cooler with 2 cold beers, and sat under the pecan tree like I was watching a 4th of July parade. After a minute, I came back with a small dry erase board, thick red marker, and held it up. 7.5. The crowd went quiet. An older man shouted, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I raised my voice. "Your marching is offbeat. If you're going to protest, at least get in sync. Arms, knees, rhythm. A couple huffed, a few muttered, one woman gasped. I leaned back, took another bite of jerky, and added, "Come on, show me some effort." Half the crowd didn't know whether to be offended or embarrassed. The other half of the crowd clearly had no idea why they were even there. But here's the thing about groups like that. It's not the loudmouths you watch, it's the quiet one, the guy scanning for witnesses. Sure enough, mid-morning, a man showed up who didn't fit the HOA retiree look. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and help me reach 100K subscribers. Your support really means a lot and keeps me motivated to create more stories like this. Late 40s, ball cap, low, polo 2 sizes too tight, shoulders tight as a drawn bow. He marched right up to the gate like he owned a warrant. He started snapping pictures. The gate, my house, me. I stood up slowly, hands visible, my GoPro blinking red on my cap. "Can I help you?" I asked. He ignored me and took another shot, zooming in. I said firmer, "Sir, you're on the easement line. Step back." Instead of stepping back, he stepped forward. "You, the land hog," he yelled. "The guy blocking ambulances, the guy putting families at risk." I stayed calm, no anger. "This is private property," I said. "Step away from the gate." He leaned in again, way too close, and swiped at my shoulder. Not a punch, just a theatrical brush of fingertips across my jacket. Then he flopped to the ground like I'd shot him, clutching his face, screaming. "He hit me! He assaulted me! Call the cops!" Phones popped up. People shouted. Someone cried, "Oh my God, did you see that?" I only pointed to the tiny red light on my cap. The GoPro had been recording every second. I didn't have to explain anything. The lie unraveled on its own. The man on the ground kept wailing like he'd been trampled instead of merely tumbled, rolling around, clutching his face and demanding someone call the police. A woman in a pink visor gasped as if she'd watched a murder. Another shouted, "That's assault! I saw it!" even though she'd been staring at her phone moments before. I didn't move toward him, didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I tapped the side of my cap where the GoPro sat, the red light steady. Evidence drowns out hysteria. When the sheriff's deputy showed up, Deputy Miller, the same one as before, the actor was still on the ground, groaning and holding a tissue to his nose even though there wasn't a drop of blood. Miller stepped out of his cruiser with the steady calm of someone who's seen every stunt. He scanned the crowd, then the man, then me. "All right," he said. "What happened?" The actor popped up like he'd been cued. "He assaulted me," he shouted. "He came up and shoved me. I want to press charges." Miller let the claim hang for a beat before asking, "You want to press charges?" The man pointed at me like he'd found the villain in a bad courtroom drama. Miller turned to me. "You got footage?" I didn't speak. I unclipped the GoPro and handed it over. I pointed toward the gate and mentioned the security camera with a clean angle. A few phones went limp. Faces shifted. Miller climbed back to his cruiser, plugged the GoPro into his tablet, and started watching. The crowd hushed. Even the actor paused. I watched Miller's face as he watched the video. No theatrics, just concentration. He replayed the moment in slow motion. That was all it took. Miller stepped out of the cruiser, holding the tablet low. "Sir," he said to the actor, "you want to change your statement?" The man froze, eyes darting to the crowd, pride battling panic. He lifted his chin. "Well, maybe it wasn't that bad," Miller said, cutting him off. "Turn around." The crowd rippled in disbelief. "What?" the actor sputtered. Miller already unclipped the cuffs. "Turn around," he repeated. "No, sir," Miller said flatly. "You filed a false police report and attempted to defraud law enforcement. That's a crime." He snapped the cuffs closed and walked the man toward the cruiser. The same people chanting an hour earlier folded up their signs and avoided eye contact as they shuffled back to their SUVs like kids sneaking home after curfew. One woman muttered, "I didn't know they were going to do that." "Sure, lady," someone muttered back under his breath. As the cruiser pulled away, someone in the dispersing group yelled, "We didn't sign up for this." They just hadn't expected it to fall apart so fast. Miller gave me a look as he drove off, part apology, part warning. "This is getting out of hand," he said quietly. "You should be careful." I nodded. "Careful is my specialty," I told him. He left, and the fence line fell quiet again. Too quiet. If the HOA had been willing to stage an assault, they weren't finished. They were only warming up. Trouble has a sound, not shouting, not gunfire. It's the slow crunch of rubber on gravel, the low diesel rumble your gut recognizes before your ears do. I heard it the next morning. I was elbow deep in the guts of an old Massey Ferguson when the noise rolled across the property like a warning. This wasn't a pickup or a delivery truck. This thing had weight and purpose. I wiped my hands and walked out. On the far side of my fence, an excavator sat, bright yellow crawler tracks grinding over dirt. 3 men in reflective vests walked beside it, one with a clipboard, one carrying orange survey flags, and another with a can of fluorescent spray paint. They didn't look lost. They looked like men who'd been told they were allowed to be there. I walked straight to the fence line, not hurried, not slow, just the calm of someone who owns the dirt under his boots. The clipboard man forced a friendly face. "Morning, sir," he called. "We're prepping a temporary access lane. Surface grading only, nothing structural." I stared. "On whose authority?" He flipped his clipboard like the answer would appear. "Per community project management directives, a temporary equipment route." "That's funny," I said, stepping to the fence, "because this land belongs to me, and no one asked me to sign anything." He shifted, eyes flicking to the others for backup. "Sir, we were told this was pre-approved." "By who?" I asked. He swallowed. "Karen," he said. I tilted my head. Never heard of her. Before he could spin another line, the paint guy crouched and marked a bright orange X right on my fence post. On it, not near it. "My post," I said quietly. The painter froze like his whole paycheck depended on pretending he hadn't heard. The excavator operator leaned from his cab. "You want us to go ahead with the first cut?" he called. "No," I said, louder this time. "Nobody touches that fence." The clipboard man tried to smile, only it looked like a man holding down nausea. "Sir, please, we were assured." I pulled out my phone. "Let me help you with that assurance," I said, and dialed the sheriff. Then I called the county zoning office. While we waited, I recorded everything. The flags, the paint, the documents, the machine idling like a loaded threat. The workers pretended to be busy, but simmered with panic. One just stared at his boots like he could disappear. 45 minutes later, the county inspector arrived, older than the Clearwater Ridge development itself. Tired eyes behind glasses and boots caked with dirt. He walked the site with me, checked the flags and the paint, scanned the perimeter, then frowned. "You boys got a permit?" he asked. Silence. "You got survey markers?" More silence. "You got anything that says you're allowed to be here?" The clipboard man's voice cracked. "We were told—" "That's not what I asked," the inspector snapped. When the sheriff's deputy showed up, a different one this time, the workers retreated from the fence faster than I'd ever seen grown men move. "Sir," the deputy said, "looks like you caught them before they did any damage." I nodded. "Damage isn't the issue," I said. "Intent is." He didn't disagree. The workers packed up, flags pulled, paint capped, and the excavator backed away like a scolded dog. But they'd shown their hand. This wasn't a mistake or miscommunication. It was a coordinated attempt to push my boundary with equipment, hired crews, and lies. That meant they weren't negotiating anymore. They were trying to take. By evening, the air carried the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. Not in the sky, but in people. The excavator stunt had rattled someone at Clearwater Ridge. The inspector left, shaking his head. The deputy left suspicious. Somewhere in the HOA clubhouse, at least one person realized Karen Sterling had crossed a line she couldn't drag the rest of them past. I didn't know who yet. Around 9 p.m., as I was locking up the workshop, I heard hesitant footsteps at the gate, not the entitled stomp of an HOA enforcer or the stealthy shuffle of a trespasser, but a nervous, uneven tread of someone who didn't want this conversation. The dogs lifted their heads and watched. I stepped out with a flashlight and angled the beam toward the road. A man stood there in pressed khakis and a button-down, a laptop bag over his shoulder. He looked familiar in that vague way you recognize strangers from grocery store aisles. He raised a hand. "Mr. Saltz, may I talk to you a moment?" His voice trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what he carried. I opened the gate halfway and kept about 3 feet between us. That depends, I said. Who are you? He swallowed. My name is Tyler Manning. I'm the treasurer for Clearwater Ridge. Something clicked inside me. This wasn't a board member coming to warn me. It was someone carrying a burden. He glanced over his shoulder twice before speaking. I didn't come as a board member, he said quickly. I came as a homeowner. I can't be part of what's happening anymore. He wiped his palms on his pants like they were slick with sweat. I didn't rush him. Men spill secrets the moment you stop talking. He exhaled. You're not the villain they're painting you as, he said. And what happened today? The excavator. That wasn't an accident. Karen authorized it. She told the board it was pre-negotiated and pending county approval. He shook his head. I checked. None of that was true. I nodded. Keep talking. Tyler opened his laptop bag and pulled out a thick envelope stuffed full. He offered it like it might burn him. Inside was a USB drive and a stack of printed emails. I shouldn't have this, he whispered. If she finds out I copied it, she'll destroy me. He took a shaky breath. She already tried. As treasurer, he'd been watching the books. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and help me reach 100K subscribers. Your support really means a lot and keeps me motivated to create more stories like this. Over the past 6 months, there were discrepancies. Large payments, off-book transfers, accounts labeled security operations and resolution strategy. 40,000 here, 60,000 there. Some routed through shell companies, some paid in cash. I raised an eyebrow. And who authorized them? His voice cracked. Karen, only Karen. He looked up, ashamed and terrified. There's over 300,000 missing. The numbers didn't shock me. The desperation in his tone did. He stepped closer, still holding the envelope like a talisman. She'd told the board these were for community protection, legal prep, conflict mitigation, but the charges didn't match. The vendors weren't real. The invoices were fabricated. You're coming to me, I said slowly. He met my eyes. Because she's going to blame me. There it was. The motive. Not bravery, but survival. Tyler's voice broke. She's already set the narrative. I found an email. He pulled a folded printout and highlighted passages in red. We can outlast him legally, it read. Even if we're wrong, pressure will make him cave. And if anything goes sideways, the treasurer will take the fall. Tyler looked like a man who'd stood on thin ice too long. I can't risk prison for something I didn't do, he whispered. I can't let her drag the community into this. So I brought you everything, he said, motioning to the envelope. Emails, meeting transcripts, transaction logs, forged approvals, plans for the break-in, the excavator stunt, plans for more. I took the envelope but didn't open it. I shouldn't be here, he said, voice shaking. If Karen finds out I talked to you, she won't know, I said. He nodded, though it didn't ease him. Before he left, he paused. You're not the only one she's hurt, he said quietly. You're just the only one not afraid of her. He walked back toward the development, swallowed by the night. A man who'd finally chosen a side. I stood alone in the evening, hand on the gate, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. Karen Sterling hadn't just picked a fight. She'd picked the wrong enemy. Word moves in a small town, not too fast, not too slow, just steady like creek water, finding the easiest path. By morning, half the county had heard something about an excavator, a forged court order, or an HOA incident at my fence line. Depending on who you asked, people were curious, skeptical, or straight up nosy. Instead of letting Karen spin the story into the nightmare she preferred, I decided to shine light on everything. I sent a dozen short emails, 3 to local reporters I trusted, a few to neighbors, a few to folks who would ask questions. The message was simple. I will host a community transparency open house this Saturday at my property. All are welcome to ask questions. Documentation provided. Bring whoever you want. No anger, no drama, just sunlight. Sunlight is what people like Karen can't survive. The morning of the event came hot and windy. I set up 2 pop-up tents at the mouth of my driveway, one over a table with neatly arranged documents, the other manned by 2 kids I mentor who offered free blade sharpening for mowers and garden tools. A draw bigger than I expected. Free service and cold water bring folks together. By 10, the first visitors arrived, a retired couple from the next county, a dad with 2 kids who wanted to see the tractor, a neighbor who admitted he no longer trusted the newsletters. Then the reporters showed up, not the big city parachute teams, but local journalists who grew up here and know land boundaries and the smell of diesel and pecan trees. They asked straightforward questions. I gave straightforward answers. I walked them along the fence, pointed to the posts that had been spray marked, showed where the excavator had sat, explained the history of the road, how my grandfather carved it with a rented grader in 1967, and how the deed had been in our family long before Clearwater Ridge appeared on a county map. Inside the tent, I laid out maps, historical plats, title transfers, and tax receipts going back half a century. The kind of paperwork people over 55 respect carries weight. It's not digital. It's not altered. It's lived experience pressed into ink and stamps. Next to it were laminated copies of the Clearwater Ridge buyer agreement, with one line highlighted in bright orange: Southern ingress and egress not guaranteed or implied. Folks read it and shook their heads. One man muttered, "They bought houses without reading this." Another said, "Sounds like someone lied to them." I didn't add a word. The documents spoke for themselves. Tyler Manning arrived too. No HOA name tag this time. No pressed khakis. Just jeans and a t-shirt, a man keeping out of the sun. He hung back near the edge of the tent, avoiding reporters, occasionally glancing over his shoulder, as if expecting Karen to appear with a clipboard full of consequences. He didn't speak much, but his eyes said enough. He was done with the HOA, done with the lies, done with the fear. Around noon, a few Clearwater Ridge residents started showing up in 2s and 3s. Some came out of curiosity, some from guilt, some because their conscience had finally outshouted their Facebook group. One woman approached slowly, clutching her purse like a shield. "I'm sorry," she said. "We didn't know. We thought you were being unreasonable." I nodded. I wasn't there to humiliate anyone, just to let the truth be seen. She exhaled a breath she'd probably been holding for weeks. She said, "Today helped." By late afternoon, the crowd had grown enough that my driveway felt almost festive. Kids ran around chasing each other. Coffee thermoses clinked. My apprentices sharpened mower blades fast enough to earn tips. Reporters scribbled notes while the sun lit up the documents on the tables like evidence on display. The most important change, though, wasn't who showed. It was who didn't. The HOA's Access Now Facebook group went silent. No signs, no protesters, no staged drama. Karen Sterling had vanished from public view. Whether she was regrouping or panicking, either worked in my favor. As the last visitors left and the sun sank behind the cedars, I packed up the papers, folded the tents, and stood quietly in the cooling air. For the first time since this started, the wind didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a shift, a sign that the story wasn't about a gate anymore. It was about the truth finally getting loud enough to drown the lies. The next move wouldn't be mine. It would be Karen's, and it would be her worst yet. The Travis County Courthouse has a smell. Old paper, dry wood polish, recycled air, and tension. The kind you feel in your teeth. I arrived early, pressed shirt, clean boots, the clothes my grandfather saved for serious days. Inside, the HOA legal team huddled together like they shared one nervous system. Matching suits, matching notebooks, matching fear. Karen Sterling sat at the center, jaw tight. She wouldn't look at me. Behind her, the treasurer, Tyler Manning, different from last time, no hiding, no fear, just finished. The judge entered, sharp eyes, silver hair, no patience for nonsense. Riverbend HOA versus Mr. Saltz. Petition for temporary access easement. Counsel, proceed. The HOA went first. Their lawyer stood with a rehearsed smile, presenting aerial photos, hypothetical emergencies, flowcharts full of arrows. He even argued my locked gate endangered regional resilience, whatever that meant. Their expert followed, speaking in corporate jargon. All filler, no substance. Finally, staged images showed an ambulance blocked by my gate, a scene that never happened. Karen nodded along. Then Miss Davis stood, and everything changed. She moved with the calm of a surgeon who already knew the outcome. First my deed, then the 1967 plat map, 55 years of tax receipts on the private road. Photos of the excavator trespassing, paint marks on my fence, flags, workers. The judge leaned forward. Miss Davis said, "And when trespass failed, Your Honor, they escalated." She tapped her laptop, dimmed the lights, and the nighttime break-in footage filled the courtroom. Sparks from a grinder, a fake enforcement badge, a forged court order. The HOA team shrank. Then helmet cam video played. The man in the polo shirt, staged shouting, dramatic fall into the dirt. A few gallery members snorted. Someone whispered, "Good Lord." The judge stayed still, which made it scarier. Miss Davis projected another document. "Here is the $500 payment receipt for that man's appearance fee, authorized by President Sterling." Karen went white. Miss Davis moved to the core of the dispute, the Clearwater Ridge buyer agreement. The judge's eyes halted at the highlighted line. Southern ingress and egress not guaranteed or implied. The courtroom fell silent. "Were homeowners informed?" the judge asked. Karen opened her mouth. Nothing. Miss Davis gestured to the bench. The treasurer, Tyler, wished to testify. Tyler stood, raised his hand, swore in, looked at me, then at the judge. "Mr. Manning," Miss Davis began, "tell the court what you discovered." Tyler swallowed. "President Sterling misrepresented that clause to homeowners. She said the Southern Road was approved. She withheld board votes. She authorized harassment payments disguised as contractor fees." Miss Davis handed him a page. "Total amount of unauthorized expenditures?" Tyler looked down, voice barely above a whisper. But the mic carried it. $300,000. Gasps echoed. The judge's chin lifted. Miss Davis pressed. "When you questioned President Sterling?" Tyler's voice steadied. "She said she'd pin it on me. Treasurers go down first." Karen lurched to her feet. "That's a lie. He's twisting." The judge slammed the gavel. Half the room jumped. "Sit down." Karen sank. Miss Davis finished. "Your Honor, this petition isn't about access. It's about control, retaliation, falsified authority, and financial misconduct." The judge didn't hesitate. Petition denied with prejudice. Evidence referred to the district attorney for criminal review. Karen looked unplugged. Her lawyer stared at the floor. I didn't smile or gloat. I simply exhaled, a long breath I'd been holding for months. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted. Karen wasn't the hunter anymore. She was the prey. 2 days later, the air around my place felt different. Quiet, not peaceful, but quiet enough to signal the other side wasn't plotting. Early that morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. "County auditors are here. They're asking questions." I stared at it. Later he added, "Karen didn't show. No need for popcorn." Around noon, a reporter called. "Mr. Saltz, the county confirmed a financial review of Riverbend HOA. Comment? No, I said, but I'll listen." She chuckled. "Messy," she said. By mid-afternoon, word spread. Multiple financial irregularities flagged, consultant fees, security ops. Contractors paid off the books, invoices labeled as resolution strategy. Total, just over $374,000, half approved without board vote, half buried under fake maintenance items, fraud, and the county saw enough. The HOA board met that night in the cheap clubhouse. Residents crowded in. I stayed home, porch cold drink in hand, hearing echoes across the road. "You lied. Where's the money, Karen? Trust is like a fence post. Once it snaps, you can't fix it." The meeting ended with a motion to suspend Karen. She refused. Of course. People like her dig deeper, but digging doesn't help when the hole's under your feet. The next morning, the county confirmed possible criminal violations. Residents came to my gate to apologize. Some brought pie, some a handshake, some awkward smiles. I accept it all. Forgiveness costs nothing. Grudges take work. The real show came 3 days later. Welding a brace on my eastern fence, I heard sirens. Not frantic, just steady. Sheriff SUV, then another, then a county investigator sedan, heading to Karen Sterling's home. Residents peeked from windows, stepped onto porches. Karen appeared. White blouse, forced smile. Officers read charges, fraud, conspiracy to commit trespass, misappropriation of funds, staged incidents, document tampering. Handcuffs clicked. Shock replaced her confidence. Behind her, the HOA sign rattled in the wind. Riverbend Estates, a community of trust. A neighbor filmed. Someone whispered, "Well, that didn't age well." Karen ducked her head. Cameras caught it all. The walk of shame, last glance at the sign she once stood in front of, the community watching her leave in cuffs. The HOA dissolved 2 weeks later. License revoked, operation suspended, temporary state-appointed overseer to sort the wreckage. Tyler turned down the role, stopped by my place one evening, hands in pockets, eyes tired but lighter. "I never wanted it to go this far," he said. "I know you didn't," I replied. "Do you hate us?" he asked. "No, but I'm keeping my gate closed." He smiled, small and sincere. Fair enough. Life didn't snap back overnight, but quiet returned. Dogs barked at nothing, wind through cedars, the hum of honest work. One afternoon, pouring concrete along the eastern fence, anchoring thick steel bollards, solar lights mounted, hand-painted "No trespassing private land" sign hung. Neighbors still visit, the ones who apologized, the ones who learned. I don't hold grudges. The gate stays closed. This quiet isn't uneasy, isn't pre-storm. It's a long exhale. The land finally unclenched. Weeks passed, then months. Time smoothed the edges. I worked the land my grandfather taught me. Mornings, coffee in hand, dogs trotting beside me. Pausing by the eastern fence where the excavator once crawled, strangers spray-painted posts. Now, quiet, reinforced, solid. Solar lights flick off in the sun. Bollards cast shadows. Honest things have their own beauty. Mailbox filled with fewer HOA newsletters, more handwritten notes. Neighbors, strangers, young families. Apologies, thanks, lessons learned. I kept them all, not out of pride, but as reminders. People make mistakes, communities bigger ones. Sometimes the truth is enough to turn them around. Clearwater Ridge residents walk dogs nearby. Some wave, some don't. One older gentleman stopped at my fence. "I misjudged you." "No harm done," I replied. "Think things will be better without the HOA?" I shrugged. People either learn or they don't. He chuckled and went on. Evenings on the porch, sun melting behind the horizon, orange and purple glow shrinking problems. Distant highway traffic, coyotes calling, wind rattling my grandfather's wind chimes. I think about him a lot, what he would have said. A boundary means something only if you defend it. Simple truths. Line is a line. Lie is a lie. Gate is a gate. After the court case, I wondered if it could have been avoided, if I should have taken the easement money, kept my head down. Then I'd walk the quarter-mile gravel my grandfather carved in 1967, the same stretch they tried to claim. I remembered why I stood firm, not spite, not pride, but truth. This land was handed down, not handed over. Once you give away what isn't yours, you never get it back. Late one afternoon, Tyler stopped by. No official role, just a man climbing out of a hole. "Strange," he said. "The HOA treated you like the enemy, but you might have saved this place." "How?" I asked. "If Karen kept going, we'd all be in debt, in court, or worse. Sometimes holding the line keeps everyone from falling off the cliff." I said nothing. He clapped my shoulder once and left. A man grateful to have a future. That night, locking the gate, breeze through the grass, cedar and warm soil scent. New sign reflected the porch light, gold trim glinting. A quiet kind of revenge. Hand along the metal, not pride, but closure. Before heading back, I whispered into the dark. My land, my rules. The wind didn't answer. Some things are settled forever once you say them out loud.